and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Noah, and I wanted to welcome all of you today to another video here on my YouTube channel where I discuss the varying types of lifestyles that you can have with different salaries. In the previous two episodes, I've discussed life with $40,000 and then $50,000, so this episode is going to be life with $60,000. As always, I hope you can take something away from this video, so now let's get into life with $60,000. So here we are again in Excel in the dashboard that I've created for basically showing you guys these different types of examples. So briefly speaking, if you haven't seen the first two episodes, which I really do recommend because it's going to look it's going to flow a lot better chronologically rather than just jumping in. But essentially, what we do is we go over different salaries, right? So in this example, it's going to be $60,000. And then what I do following that is I break down basically what the checks are going to look like. So $2,307 is roughly going to be the check amount for this salary. And then I go over some of the benefits that you might get through your employer. So 401k contributions, health insurance, dental, vision, perhaps like an HSA account or something like that. And then I go over the taxes that will be deducted roughly from each of these checks, which I do want to mention that the pay schedule for this example are going to be, every other week. So 26 pay periods for a calendar year. I then go over the take-home amount, basically what goes into your bank account per check. On a check basis and then on a monthly basis. And then finally, what everybody cares about is the annual take-home amount. I then go into three different categories of where your expenses will pretty much go out of through the entire year. So I've got essential expenses right here, non-essential expenses, which are your fun and so on, and then saving and investing. And basically putting this all together will give us a pretty decent idea of what type of lifestyle you can have with a given salary. So as always, for scenario one, basically the dashboard that we're looking at right here, this is a individual who's very hyper-focused on maximizing their benefits, as I say, right? So they're maxing out their 401k, they're making sure that they're enrolled for all of their health insurances and making sure that they're covered in every area basically on their body. And they are also contributing to a health savings account, which is a very powerful account. Which I don't think many people really talk about or consider, on a normal basis, but it's an extremely advantageous account that I think you should definitely consider looking into if it's offered through your employer as well. So for this individual, right, like I said, they're all in on their benefits. They're putting in, the max amount to their 401k, and they're making sure that they have all of their insurance and such. So this would lead total taxes per their check, which as we know is $2,307, to be $245. So relatively low, right? Which is what we would expect when you're contributing that much, on a pre-tax basis, right? Because your taxes aren't going to be calculated until after all of your deductions. So then this would lead their take-home per check to be $863. On a monthly basis, $1,800, nearly $1,900, and then annually, of course, $22,438. So this is a pretty stark difference from what we've seen, with a salary of $40,000, who was also an individual who was also putting in basically everything into their employer or employee, benefits. I think we had, $6,000 or $7,000 or something like that. Very low amount, or I think it was 12 rather, but really not that much. But now we can see that we actually have a little bit of wiggle room, right? A little bit of money to spend on on living and, expenses that would come with it. So now let's put this money into action. So let's kind of see what kind of life that we can live here. So as always, I like to stick with a monthly rent, for example, of $1,000. I think it just keeps things pretty simple. So we're going to use $1,000 there. And of course, we know that that's going to be $12,000 annually, leading roughly $10,000 left over. So already, for me, I can already kind of construe what things are going to look like, but let's put in some more values here. So we know electric is roughly probably going to be $80 per month. Amber Alert. So electric is going to be roughly $80 per month. Let's say utilities on a monthly basis, I think we like to say is like $40. It's really, I mean, I guess it depends on your area, but it's not too ridiculous. Groceries monthly, we like to say about $100 per week. So let's say $400 there. Vehicle, and I actually previously I was using, I believe maybe $300 per vehicle. So I think I want to stick with that. I did read a few different statistics that stated that the average vehicle payment is actually a little bit higher than that. It's like 450 to 500, but we're gonna stick with 300 for this example here to keep things consistent as they were before. Gasoline, maybe let's say monthly 150, I think is fair. Let's say this individual doesn't have a kid, right? Let's just keep it simple there. Medical, let's say, pretty much none. I mean, they are covered if something would go wrong, but let's keep that zero as well. Let's say they do have a pet monthly, on average, maybe 15 a month. Not that, 15 a month. Student loans, I did see a few other statistics of what student loans might look like, but let's keep this zero as well because we did in the other examples. They don't have any other debt, which is good. Let's say maybe their cellular cost per month is $30. I think that's pretty common. And now this leads to a total spending, as you can see right here, of $24,000. So this is kind of what I expected. Initially when I mentioned I could kind of see into the future here. We don't really have enough to cover our essential expenses, right? Groceries could easily be more than that if they had student loans. That's just not going to work. If they had a medical expense, they're not going to make it through their essential expenses with this current setup, right? So in this example, if you are with a salary of $60,000 and you want to be all in on your benefits, it's probably not going to be the best idea to be out on your own. And from this example here, it doesn't even look like you really can. So now let's move into the individual who is foregoing all of their benefits, right? So this is the individual who just wants to take home as much of that income as they can, right? For their living expenses, for their fun, for their eating out, for their any whatever expense they basically have going on. So they are not contributing anything to their 401k. They're opting out of health insurance in all forms, dental, vision, and so on, and they're not contributing into their HSA, which is a bummer especially if it is provided through your employer. And 401k is another red flag, just because you can get matches and so on. I've made a video on why 401k matches are so important. You can check that out if you want more info on that. But basically, with this salary, their total taxes per check are going to be just under 500, so quite a bit more, double basically of what we previously saw, leading their take-home income per check to be 1,800, roughly their take-home monthly to be just under 4,000, and their take-home annually to be almost $48,000. So, a lot of people I think would see this and say, this is great. I've got $48,000 to spend per year. This is plenty. I should be fine. So let's start putting in, let's build a life, right? Similar to how we did. So 1,000 per month on their rent. Let's say their electric, like I said, is 80, utility 40, groceries 400, vehicle 300. We know it's actually probably likely more on an average basis, but let's just keep it 300. I think we said 150 a month for gasoline, zero child, zero medical, and we're making an assumption that they're very healthy. They're never hurt. They're not going to the doctor, which I think some people would argue is not accurate, but we're just going to keep it simple for these examples. Their pet, another 15 a month. Student loans, let's say they don't have any as well, no other debt, and then $30 a month for their bill. So, similar to the other example, they were at $24,000 to cover their essential expenses. And I added another row here that will give us the amount that's basically left over to spend for the rest of the year. So we still have $23,000 to spend. So this isn't looking half bad. Let's continue building the lifestyle that this individual might have to see, how close we can get to that. So discretionary, This is difficult, quite honestly, because it varies drastically, male to female, individual to individual. Let's keep things relatively conservative here. So let's say on a monthly basis, maybe they spend 200 on clothes, shoes, style, sunglasses, whatever it is. I think that's pretty conservative. So we're going to keep that there. Entertainment, going out, right? Shows, travel. I mean, these are expensive endeavors, but maybe on average, let's keep it the same. Perhaps I think that's maybe relatively conservative. Beauty is another example here where it could be, $50 a year if you're a guy and you get, three haircuts a year, like myself. Or you could be, a girl that spends $600 to get her hair bleached, blonde, style, straightened, and I've heard of that. Absolutely obscene, about $1,000 in some cases with tipping and so on. So, we can't put an exact number on here, but let's say monthly. On average, maybe it's $20 a month, right? 240 total for all beauty, skincare stuff. Okay, I think that's relatively decent, and I'm sure it's very conservative for some girls out there who really like to go all in on that as well. So fitness, $30 a month or I think we like to keep this 20 for a relatively inexpensive gym membership. It can go very high, but let's say they're at working out at an inexpensive gym. Miscellaneous expenses, they're always going to be there. There's no getting out of that. So let's maybe say on a monthly basis, maybe 150 and just, cleaning supplies, they're on their own, right? So stuff happens. Dining out, let's call it maybe, I'm not sure, 60 a week, right? So 240 a month, maybe we can keep it 200, keep it consistent with the other stuff. So our total for non-essentials now is nearly $9,500, which leaves $13,738. So a lot of people would, I think, see this and say, "This is great. I will save, I will save half. I'll save 6,000 and 6,000 some, and I will invest another 6,000 some. So yeah, things are good, right? All is good, and that could be. I think that could be the case. Potentially, I'll put some numbers in here. Maybe this will be like 600 a month, for saving, and then maybe this is like 450 a month, or maybe it could be 500, I guess. So we're really close, right? The amount remaining now, if we saved 600 a month and then invested 500 a month, leaves us with like $538 left over at the end of the year, which could easily go right in a second. So I think this is a pretty good setup to kind of reflect what a lifestyle might be. And immediate things that stick out to me is that yes, we are covering all bases. In previous examples, $40,000 salary and then $50,000 salary, we didn't even make it to saving and investing, right? All of our expenses were tied up in essentials and non-essentials, but we actually made it out here. That's not the whole story necessarily. One thing that sticks out to me, obviously, in this example, as always, they're not taking advantage of these benefits. The 401k, the first example, they are maxing out their 401k $884 per check, leads to about $23,000 at the end of the year. This individual is only investing 6,000, so it's less than a quarter, or about a quarter of what the first individual is doing. That may or may not work based off of your financial goals for the future, when you want to retire, how you want to retire, and then what type of lifestyle you want to have in retirement as well. And this is kind of a shame, because if the employer offers a 401k match, they're not getting any of it, right? It's because they're not contributing to it. You can make an argument that they'd maybe contribute some of this, but that's neither here nor there. The other thing is that they don't have insurance, right? This is a huge thing in this country for me. What I always talk about on my videos and to different people is that you need to make sure that you are covered, because if something goes wrong medically in this country, it's no mercy, right? There's not much forgiveness there. So this budget could easily be turned upside down if something would happen, some kind of bodily injury or anything like that. We may not make it to saving and investing. We may not even make it to essentials, perhaps. The other thing is that they're not doing an HSA account, which isn't, the worst thing ever. I just think it's pretty advantageous, but they're not doing it in this example either. So for this example, with $60,000, pardon me, are they living on their own? Yes. And I think a lot of people are actually in this boat, but it is very easy for this budget currently to not work. Let's say they had a kid, right? Or let's say, so their child expenses, I mean, who knows what that would be a month, right? For some time at least. Let's say they had student loans. Student loans on average are about $300 a month. So if they had student loans, for example, right, now we're negative $3,000. So that means $3,000 needs to come out of saving or investing. So then, our saving maybe stays at 7,200, but then our investing is down to a measly $3,000 a year. So does this work? Kind of. Would I still recommend an individual in this scenario, be out on their own? Not really. I think for this salary, it's still probably a decent idea to stay back or, have expenses split so, you don't have this entire burden that we're seeing right here. So last but not least, this is the individual who is kind of the halfway point between the hyper-focused individual and then the individual who just basically is living, right? The example that we just went over. So they're contributing half of the maximum amount to their 401k. They make sure that they have insurance, and then they're contributing half of the maximum amount for their HSA for 2024, leading their taxes per check to be just under $350. Their take-home per check, $1,287. Take-home monthly, just under $2,800, and then their take-home annually, $33,000, almost $33,500. So let's see, what type of life we can build here, and see if we can kind of come close to a semblance of a sustainable life on our own. So rent or mortgage, ideally, likely it's going to be rent here. 1,000, we say 80 here, 40 here, 400. Vehicle, I think we said 150, or no, we said 300, right? Gasoline is 150. Child 0, medical 0, pet 15, student loan 0, and then $30. So total, we've spent, $24,000 just about, just with our essentials, leading, I think it's about $9,000. We'll keep going. I can kind of see where this is going, but let's say our discretionary are the same. So I think we had 200 for this entertainment. Let's see what we did. So 2020. Yeah, 200, 200, 20, 20. Let's see. 2020, 150, 200. 150 and 200. So look at this. Look how perfect this example is right here. Between their essentials and non-essentials, we are just over, right? Our total expenses are $33,660, and our annual take home is $33,462. So clearly in this example too, we're not quite where we want to be. Even splitting certain things like rent, this will be relatively tight. They are, making investments, but, look at here, they're not saving anything at the end of it. They're actually negative for this specific example. So, similar to the first two examples for this individual, I think it's probably a relatively wise decision to stay back and, put their money to work elsewhere, right? Instead of spending it all on living expenses. So there you have it. That is basically the summary of the three examples living with $60,000 annually. For this example, similar to the first two episodes, the $40,000 example and then the $50,000 salary example, it doesn't seem like the best idea to kind of go out on your own at this point, just from the examples or the lifestyles that I've created. in these few videos here. It doesn't necessarily leave enough room for, security and for, for you to be saving, whatever goals you have and so on. So unfortunately for this episode as well, it's probably a good decision to stay back, right? If you are in this salary range and, take the money and put it elsewhere rather than spending it all on your living expenses. So there you have it. That is going to conclude this episode of Life with $60,000 here on my YouTube channel. I do want to hear from you. What do you think about the examples that I'm bringing forward? How accurate are they to the lifestyle that you might be currently living as well? As always, if you have any questions for me personally, or if you'd like to take a look at the financial services that I can provide to you, I've left my email and a link to my company website in the description box below. As always, thank you so much for your time today, and happy financing.